want to set the record straight, the difference between VDC and the BIM for the listeners?
Yeah, so BIM, stands for Building Information Modeling, and that's the process of putting, of building a three-dimensional model that's parametric, that contains information, related to the building. VDC stands for Virtual Design and Construction, and I guess, this is my own interpretation of what the definition is, but to me, virtual design and construction is more about integrating the design phase of the project and the construction phase of the project. So you're moving from the building has been in design to now you need to actually construct the building. And so VDC is more about filling in the information gaps between the initial BIM model and then developing a construction model. I think building information modeling is more about building a model, coordinating that model, and then making sure that the design expectations are met. A VDC engineer is still working with BIM, but they're using BIM to coordinate how is this actually going to be constructed. So they're putting in the constraints of the construction environment into the building information model, right? And those constraints could be anything. Like in the mass timber world, like we discussed, you have the constraints of the actual CNC machine. You have the constraints of what can actually be produced. So you have the constraints of how heavy things are, right? If an element of the building is too heavy to actually put in place, you can't actually wreck the building. You might have site constraints, right? You have to split up the model into different phases of work so that people can move around the site and actually install the building in sequence. So those are just some examples of the difference between BIM, which in my mind is just completely working in a digital space, in a virtual space, making sure everything works in the computer. And then VDC is more about, well, how do we take what's in the computer, put it in the real world?
Definitely, that was a really good clarification. And the VDC and BIM, I think now and even further in the future, they will get more and more cluttered. Like in Europe, we don't so much hear about the VDC other than VDC softwares and tools. But then when we talk about VDC, as you described, then we talk about BIM-based production, which is exactly that. But it's a good definition.